Hello everyone and welcome to Use Your Spanish. Bienvenidos a Use Your Spanish, the place where you can learn the Spanish that you really need. My name is Salo and in today's video we are going to continue with our series of Vamos al grano. This is our episode number 6 and the topic for this lesson is building basic sentences. As you can see, this is the first of several parts that I am intending to share with you over the next few weeks, in which I will explain to you some basic structures that will help you to start building very simple but useful sentences in Spanish. En este video practicaremos cómo preguntar la cantidad de algo, es decir, cuánto, y el uso de la forma verbal hay. So in this video, we are going to practice how to ask about the quantity of something. And also we are going to practice the verb form I. So I really advise you to stay until the end of this video, especially if you are just a beginner, because at the end of this video, we are going to have some practice, some exercises that will help us, for example, to describe how many things are there in this picture, or to describe how many things we see in this picture, okay? So stick around and let's get started with the explanation. The first thing that I want to explain to you is that saying there is or there are in Spanish is very simple. It's a simple matter of using the word I. What about the negative way? It's simply no hay, no hay. And what about the interrogative way? Well, in Spanish is just like the affirmative way, but of course we change the intonation. So it's I. But where does this I come from? Well, it might help to remember that I is actually the impersonal form of the verb haber. You may have already heard about this verb in Spanish because it is also used as an auxiliary verb to make compound forms of verbs. Okay, we will have a look at them in other videos. But for now, remember that I is the impersonal form of this verb. Okay? So unlike other Spanish verbs, which conjugate according to the subject, I is always I in the present tense. It doesn't change, okay? Whether you are expressing the singular, there is, or the plural, there are, it doesn't change. Or it doesn't matter if you are talking about a feminine subject or a masculine subject. So let's have a look at some simple basic examples. There is a man. How would you say this in Spanish? Well, it is hay un hombre. Hay un hombre. What about there is a woman? Hay una mujer. Hay una mujer. Now, what about when we use the plural? How would you say this in Spanish? Hay dos niños. Hay dos niños. Another example, there are two girls. Hay dos niñas. Hay dos niñas. So, as you can see, it doesn't matter if you are using there is or there are in English. In Spanish, it's always going to be I in the present tense. So now, let's practice the use of I with some more elaborated sentences. Have a look at this sentence. How would you say this in Spanish? Hay un libro en la mesa. O hay un libro sobre la mesa. ¿Cómo dirías esta oración? Hay 5 platos en la mesa. O hay 5 platos sobre la mesa. Okay, so this is the affirmative way of using I in Spanish. Estamos utilizando I para afirmar una situación. Ahora practiquemos la forma negativa. Now let's practice the negative form. So, how would you say this in Spanish? ¿Cómo dirías esta frase o esta oración en español? No hay un libro en la mesa o no hay un libro sobre la mesa. And what about this one? No hay 5 platos en la mesa o no hay 5 platos sobre la mesa. Now let's have a look at the interrogative way. So in English, as you already know, we change the order of the words. instead of saying there is, we say is there. However, in Spanish, nothing changes, only the intonation. So, how would you say this sentence in Spanish? Pues exactamente igual que en la forma afirmativa, pero cambiando la entonación y por supuesto usando los signos de interrogación. ¿Hay un libro en la mesa? ¿O hay un libro sobre la mesa? What about the other sentence? How would you say this? ¿Hay 5 platos en la mesa? ¿O hay 5 platos sobre la mesa? So now we have seen the affirmative way, the negative way, and the interrogative way of I, okay? Let's keep practicing a little bit now with some questions and some answers. Ahora vamos a practicar con algunas preguntas y algunas respuestas de frases que pueden ser muy útiles en momentos prácticos de nuestra vida cotidiana. So how would you ask this in Spanish? ¿Hay alguien más aquí? ¿Hay alguien más aquí? No, no hay nadie más. No, no hay nadie más. Another example. How would you ask this question in Spanish? ¿Hay algún problema? ¿Hay algún problema? And if we want to say, no, there isn't, or no, there isn't any problem, how would you say that in Spanish? No, no hay ningún problema. No, no hay ningún problema. Okay, now what about this one? How would you ask this question in Spanish? ¿Hay leche en la nevera? ¿Hay leche en la nevera? Sí, sí hay. Or simply, sí hay. No, no hay. Or simply, no hay. Okay, so now we already know how to use the verb form I to talk about the availability of something or the presence of something. So, before we continue with the rest of the video, I would like to remind you very quickly to subscribe to my channel if you haven't done it yet, so that you don't miss any of the new videos I upload every week for you. I'm sure that you will find all my content very, very useful. So if you don't want to miss out, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and activate the notification bell so that you receive a notification every single time I upload a new video. Also, remember that you can follow me on my social networks on Facebook and Instagram, and visit my website www.useyourspanish.com. And that's it, so let's continue with the rest of the video. Okay, so we already saw the equivalent in Spanish to there is and there are. Now, we are going to see the equivalent in Spanish to how much and how many. So these words help us to ask about the quantity, about the number of something. So the equivalent of these words in Spanish is cuánto, cuánto, okay? But here we have to consider gender and quantity, okay? So unlike the previous one in which it didn't change at all, this one, it changes completely. So if we are asking about something that is in the singular and is masculine, we have to use cuánto. But if we are asking about a plural masculine, we have to ask cuántos. On the other hand, if you are asking about something that is singular and feminine, you have to ask cuánta. And if it's in plural and it's feminine, cuántas. Okay, so we have 4 options: cuánto, cuántos, cuánta, and cuántas. So, if I want to ask you, how many books are there on the table? How would you ask this in Spanish? ¿Cuántos libros hay en la mesa? ¿Cuántos libros hay en la mesa? What about the other sentence? How would you ask this in Spanish? ¿Cuántos platos hay en la mesa? ¿Cuántos platos hay en la mesa? Let's keep practicing. How would you ask this in Spanish? ¿Cuántas personas hay afuera? ¿Cuántas personas hay afuera? Another example. ¿Cuántos días hay en una semana? ¿Cuántos días hay en una semana? Let's continue. How would you ask this question in Spanish? ¿Cuánto dinero hay en el banco? ¿Cuánto dinero hay en el banco? Another example. How would you ask this question in Spanish? ¿Cuánta agua hay en tu botella? ¿Cuánta agua hay en tu botella? So now you know how to use the verb form I and how to ask how much or how many in Spanish. I think that this is the perfect moment to start practicing a little bit. So let's practice, practiquemos un poco. Te voy a hacer algunas preguntas y luego vamos a dar respuestas a esas preguntas solo para practicar un poco el uso de estas dos estructuras en español, ¿vale? The first question or the first sentence is this one. La primera pregunta es esta. Piensa por un momento cómo harías esta pregunta en español. How would you ask this question in Spanish? ¿Cuántas habitaciones hay en tu casa? ¿Cuántas habitaciones hay en tu casa? Okay, let's say that you are going to answer this question like this. How would you say this in Spanish? Hay 4 habitaciones. Hay 4 habitaciones. Or you can say, en mi casa hay 4 habitaciones. Okay, great. Let's continue. Another example. ¿Cómo harías esta pregunta en español? ¿Cuántas películas hay en Netflix? ¿Cuántas películas hay en Netflix? And then, let's say that you answer this in English. How would you say this in Spanish? You can say, hay cientos, or hay cientos de películas. Good job. Let's continue. Another exercise, otro ejercicio. ¿Cómo harías esta pregunta en español? ¿Cuánto azúcar hay en una Coca-Cola? ¿Cuánto azúcar hay en una Coca-Cola? And let's say that you are very smart and you already know the answer because you read it somewhere on the internet. How would you say this in Spanish? Hay 39 gramos de azúcar en una lata de 12 onzas. Hay 39 gramos de azúcar en una lata de 12 onzas. Otro más. ¿Cómo harías esta pregunta en español? ¿Cuántos minutos hay en un día? ¿Cuántos minutos hay en un día? Then you do the calculations and you want to answer in Spanish. How would you say this in Spanish? Hay 1440 minutos en un día. Hay 1440 minutos en un día. Another exercise, otro ejercicio. ¿Cómo harías esta pregunta en español? ¿Cuánto dinero hay en tu billetera? ¿Cuánto dinero hay en tu billetera? Let's say that you have been spending a lot of money lately and you don't have any money. So there is no money in your wallet. How would you say this in Spanish? No hay dinero en mi billetera. No hay dinero en mi billetera. Ok, ¿qué tal esta pregunta? How would you ask this question in Spanish? ¿Cuántos elefantes hay en Australia? ¿Cuántos elefantes hay en Australia? So, unless you go to a zoo, you are not going to see elephants in Australia. So, how would you say this in Spanish then? No hay elefantes en Australia. No hay elefantes en Australia. Great! So as I promised at the beginning of this video, just have a look at this picture and try to come up with some questions. Of course, I will give you some examples, but try to come up with some questions on your own. For example, a question could be, ¿cuántas personas hay en la foto? ¿Cuántas personas hay en la foto? Another question could be, ¿cuántos tenedores hay en la foto? ¿Cuántos tenedores hay en la foto? Another question could be, ¿cuántos cuchillos hay en la foto? ¿Cuántos cuchillos hay en la foto? Another question, otra pregunta podría ser, ¿cuántos platos hay en la foto? ¿Cuántos platos hay en la foto? Otra pregunta, another question could be, ¿cuántas rebanadas de pizza hay en la foto? ¿Cuántas rebanadas de pizza hay en la foto? Another question could be, ¿cuántas servilletas hay en la foto? ¿Cuántas servilletas hay en la foto? So, that's all for this video, guys. I hope that you were able to learn new things in this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Don't forget to give me a like, to subscribe to my channel, leave your comments down below, and share it with your friends, with your family, on your social networks, so that more people get to know about my content. I would really appreciate it. So one more time, don't forget that you can visit my website www.useyourspanish.com and follow me on my social networks on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you very much for watching one more time, and I'll see you in the next video. Muchas gracias por ver este video y nos vemos en una próxima lección. Hasta pronto.